All right, for those that don't know, you introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Mark Bowden, formerly known as Bad News. I was born and raised in a neighborhood known as the 60s, between Florence and Slauson, Crenshaw and Western. My earliest memories are of myself, I had a friend named Marky Boy. He was a Japanese and lived 2 houses from me. My next door neighbors at that time were white, and the neighborhood was a mixed neighborhood. It wasn't predominantly black at that point in time. By the time, I attended 59th Street Elementary School. By the time I got to the 2nd grade though, the neighborhood was predominantly black. Almost all black, I would say. I attended 59th Street School, Elementary School, and it was there at that point in time that I started formulating different values, started formulating different friendships that have lasted a lifetime. From 59th Street School, I graduated from 59th Street School and went on and attended Horace Mann Junior High School. It was in my last year of junior high school where my friends and we started encountering different groups of guys, and because we weren't part of these groups or maybe these gang of guys, there was always some type of conflict, bumping heads, people fighting, fist fights, various different things. It was during this time that I was introduced to the gang known as West Side Crips. I was not one of them, but I was introduced to them at that point in time. My last year at Horace Mann, 1972, I left Horace Mann and went on to Crenshaw High School. Started my first year at Crenshaw. It was like 1972, 1973. Now, at this point in time in the neighborhood in which I was born and raised in, known as the 60s, it was a neighborhood that was fragmented with different gangs. And what I mean by that is this here. There wasn't one particular gang in that neighborhood at that point in time. But you had some guys who were Crips, West Side Crips. And at that point in time, those of us, we started having conflict among ourselves. Just a couple of guys having conflict with this group. And then we had the Crips having conflicts with us. Also, we had the Vanness Boys, who were located on the other side of Slauson. Now, most of us who were born in the 60s, we were born and raised and went to Vanness Park from little kids on up until junior high school. Most of us on the other side of Slauson never became Vanness Boys, although we were good friends with them, hung out with them while we were in the park. We got along well with them. But what started happening in high school, or late junior high school, we started having conflicts with them. I cannot say specifically why we started having conflicts with them, but we started having conflicts with them. We were having conflict with some of some of the Crips in the neighborhood. And also there was a gang known as the Chain Gang, who were older, but we started having conflicts with them because we weren't part of them.
Where were they located at?
Well, the Chain Gang, they were located, I would say, in right off of 8th Avenue by the Lutheran, the Catholic school there. But most of them were in Inglewood. The Chain Gang eventually became the Inglewood family. Okay, at that point in time, with the conflicts going on, we started banding together, because we wasn't just gonna get beat up, so we started banding together, sticking together and fighting back. Eventually what happened, a group was formed called the Leaders. Right there in the neighborhood, up on by 4th Avenue, and 4th Avenue going toward Florence, a couple of blocks. Also at this point in time, we had some guys coming over from the east side. Bobby, Jimmy, Space Ghost. These guys were coming over from the east side because one of their homeboys had moved on the west side, named Lucky, had moved over to the west side, and he had actually become part of us at the same time, being part of them. And they were they were known as East Side Bishops.
Do people tell y'all what used to be over in the 60s before? It was Rollin 60s?
Browns.
Bishops.
Bishop.
The bishops, man.
Old dude just told us that.
So a lot of us kind of gyrated to the guys who were coming over from the east side, the Bishop, Jimmy, Bobby, Space Ghost. So eventually what happened was, we started the West Side Bishops. Now that didn't last very long. The Leaders didn't last very long because what was happening, the Leaders, the West Side Bishops, and the group of Crips that were in the neighborhood at that point in time, we were all buddies. We all had grew up together. But now that we're all part of these different little groups, we started having these head-on conflicts, And you know, our mothers and fathers were part of the PTA members together. Our mothers and fathers, they went to the same churches together. What eventually happened was the leaders and the bishops faded away. The Crips stayed in the neighborhood. But what happened was those individuals who were Crips and those who were West Side bishops and part of the leaders all came together under one umbrella. And that umbrella became the Rollin 60 Crips.
Well, explain to me what the Vanness Boys territory was.
Well, the Vanness territory was on the other side of Slauson, was on the north side of Slauson. And that, I can't say for sure how far down that extended, because you also had Brims over there also. But that extended from Slauson all the way back up to, I would say, maybe about 48th. And maybe from about 48, maybe from about Crenshaw Boulevard on down to Western. In that area there, you also had Crenshaw High School in that area. And that was part of that too in itself became a conflict. So at this time, once we came together, let me say this here. We came together about my first year at Crenshaw High School, 72, 73. That neighborhood known, we all came together under one umbrella. At that point in time, our biggest challenge was the Vanness Boys, who happened to be some friends of ours. Because we hung out, I mean, we grew up in Vanness Park. We didn't hang up in it, but as children, we grew up in Vanness Park, so we knew who they were. So we had a friendly rivalry. It was a rivalry for sure, but it was a friendly rivalry going on with the Vanness Boys. At that point in time, we never shot at them, and they never shot at us. But when we met, we did fight.
What about the chain gang?
Well, the chain gang eventually faded away. It became the Inglewood family.
I mean, shooting, fighting.
Shooting and fighting. Oh, we fought with them all the time, you know. And there was some shooting. There was some shooting that started to occur with the chain, or the Inglewood, now the Inglewood family. And ironic thing about that, some of the leaders in the Inglewood family, older brothers, my older brother and their older brothers were the best of friends. But we did have our conflict with them whenever we meet. I would say we probably had our conflict at that point in time with the Inglewood family was more intense than it was with Vanness, with the Vanness Boys. And there's one thing a lot of people don't realize, that at this point in time, my first year in Crenshaw High, Rollin 60 Crips and 8 Trey gangsters, we were inseparable. We were the best. We were friends. We were buddies. And this went on for a couple of years. This went on until maybe about 79. But prior to that occurring, 60s had started growing, becoming big, and started becoming powerful. We had got into other things. I said mutated from our original plan was to protect each other and get a little bit of money, you know. We had mutated and started becoming something different. We had started becoming a full-fledged gang, as they call it, and doing all the things that gang members do. It wasn't just for protection anymore. It was, we were attacking individuals. We were robbing and stealing. We were breaking into people's homes. We were doing these things now. And the thing about those of us in the Rollin 60 neighborhood, most of us come from two-parent families. You know, 2-car garage, a nice neighborhood, middle-class neighborhood. And so it was strange for us to start getting into this gang thing, you know, but it did occur, you know. So a lot of people try to attribute individuals being in gang to a single family home, but that's not the case, because most of us, Rollin 60 Crips at that time, come from two-parent families.
You mentioned how you had to know how to fight in order to join in our neighborhood. So kind of explain that over for me.
Well, you had to be a person who would fight. You know, you couldn't just be a guy who would just be there and not be willing to do any fighting. We had to know that you would fight. You may not be a winner, but that you will fight and you'll fight hard. You know, this is what we expected out of you. I myself and some other vendors, we started taking martial arts, boxing, various different things, you know. My brother was a state champion in karate, and I started falling behind him while all at the same time gang banging. And by me knowing how to, I was already a fighter just to begin with, I thought, and by me taking up martial arts, I was very good at it. You know, I was very good at fighting. In my teen years, I was known to be a person who would fight and would win. My biggest rival was my best friend. You know, me and Duck, we used to fight like cats and dogs. Me and him fought each other harder than I fought anybody else in my life. But after we got through fighting whether he won or whether I won, after it was all over, said and done, hey, we was back to being the best of friends, you know.
All right, you mentioned going down the line. That,
Yes.
One of the homies was a beast.
Yeah, we had yes, we had one homeboy. You know, back then, you just couldn't come on and say, oh, I'm with you, I'm part of this game. It wasn't like that. We had a thing where you had to go down the line. We got together at Hyde Park Elementary School, and you had to go down the line. Now, I don't remember anybody ever making it down the line, you know. So I'm sure someone might have made it down. You know, we might have been some guys, but for the most part, in my generation, it never happened. Because we had this one homie named Ryder, Keith Ryder. You know, we always knew that Ryder was going to stop you from keep from going down the line because he was taking off. You know, he was the type of guy. He had this sort of crappy laugh, you know, and he was always up to something. You know, he was always, you know, and Ryder was the type of person you might not even start down the line, and he might get off on you. You know, and that's just how he was. And once you got off, and we all, the rest of us would get off on you. But we had to know that you were going to fight. And if you just balled up, you get out and beat us. You know, you couldn't be a part of it. But we had to know that you would fight back, kick, scratch, whatever you had to do it. We want to know that you would do it. A lot of the homies were fighting, fought hard. May have never won a fight in their life, but we wanted to know they will fight hard when we are fighting, you know, because that's all we needed. Somebody, we was a group of guys who we did, but fight hard. Because we were up and coming, you know, we had to prove who we were, that we were something, you know. The Black Karate Federation, the BKF, a lot of us started taking karate up there. And at the point in time, it was a good organization because it was giving people something to do. After school, it was something to do. That night, it was something to do because the gentlemen who were running the organization, they cared about people. And basically, that's what they were about, caring about people. But some of us, we mutated from that caring thing to using what they were teaching us for wrong, you know. And I myself, like I said, I had become a beast at it, you know. I had become a good fighter at it.
At what age?
I joined the BKF, I would have to say that had to be my first year at Crenshaw High School. And so I would have to be like maybe 15 or 14 years old. Yes, it had to be about 15 or 14 years old because I was having problems. I remember my first and second time fighting, tournament fighting, I got disqualified, but I got disqualified because I was aggressive and I was going against people who was just hitting people all in the head when it was against doing that in my division. And so what had happened to me was the people running the tournaments, like my third or fourth tournament, they said, no, you're fighting. They accused me of fighting out of my division because I was so aggressive. So I had to fight in senior men's division. When in fact that wasn't the case. There were some individuals from this organization that came to bat for me because they started asking me, the people who were conducting the tournaments were asking me to see my birth certificate when they weren't doing that to nobody else. In any division, they weren't doing that, but it's just that at that point in time, I was so aggressive, they wanted to see my birth certificate. First couple of tournaments I fought out of division, and I placed. I didn't win, but I placed, and I'm fighting grown men at this point in time. 15 years old, 14 years old, fighting grown men. And I was placing, I was winning, you know, but eventually I got back into my own division, you know.
Okay,
You were standouts back then in the karate.
who are some of the big names that was considered good karate fighters back then that was from any neighborhood?
From any neighborhood? Well, the most common name that people heard was Barefooted Pookie. You know, they heard Barefooted Pookie. He walked around barefooted. You know, I remember. In fact, he actually lived on 4th Avenue right there in the neighborhood at one time or another.
How about Shaft?
Shaft, that's part of the same crew we're talking about. This West Side, this part of the same crew, you know. And you had, and actually Barefoot Pookie was the one that stood out in front of everybody, you know. And then it was myself and Big Duck. You know.
Do you put yourself in the top 3?
Yes, indeed. Most definitely. I put myself as number 1. Me and Pookie never got into it, but I would put myself as number 1 because I fought. I was a fighter before I even started taking arts. But Pookie was the one with the name. But I felt I could beat him had we got into it. But we never got into it. It was a friend of his. We was the homie. And we did our thing. He did his thing. But he had a reputation because he walked around barefooted. You know, me, my reputation, I was a fighter, but my reputation wasn't like Pookie. Pookie had a reputation that just how should I say it? He had a reputation that was just when you see him coming, it's like like on the represent like he makes you stop and say you know.
How about was Tookie considered a fighter?
No, I don't remember Tookie being considered a fighter. Okay. I remember him having a fight at Horseman, but he wasn't considered a fighter.